Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the CAV Sports Podcast. It's your host, with the most, Chris. I hope you all are having a fantastic day today. I'm definitely at least having a good day. Got a lot of stuff that's going on in the sports world, NFL news and stuff like that. So let's hop straight into the episode. First order of business. The NFL playoffs, or not the NFL, I do apologize. The NBA playoffs have just begun this past week. I believe the Lakers played the play-in tournament yesterday. It was a crazy game. They came back and won, so now they're going to be facing off against the Memphis Grizzlies. That's going to be an exciting game and definitely going to be a very interesting bout between Ja Morant and LeBron James. So if you guys are excited for that one, I'm kind of excited. This is typically when I start watching the NBA just because, it's kind of more of the exciting time in my opinion, that and the playoff race. Plus, my Mavericks kind of got eliminated already. So I don't have a lot of hope right now. But, they have a whole thing going on. But that'll be another time for another episode once they kind of get that thing figured out. But if you are just as excited for the NBA playoffs to start, they just finished, I believe they're still going to play the play-in tournament, or they just concluded it. So that's going to be exciting to watch. I definitely will be watching those games when they start going up, and we'll definitely see what goes on from there. Next order of business. The NHL Stanley Cup playoffs are near. We're about a week or two away from the playoffs beginning, and the Dallas Stars have just got home ice for the playoffs. I'm very excited for that. Congratulations. I believe right now they're at 106 points right now. They're like fifth place, I believe. They're behind, I know, the Golden Knights, the Avalanche, and somebody else. And then it's the Stars, but they're like, it's very doable, it's very reachable to get up there and definitely, climb the tiers of the playoff bracket to kind of get higher and higher. So very exciting, but congratulations to the Dallas Stars. They're heading to the Stanley Cup playoffs, and I'm very excited. Definitely going to watch those games when they start. To my knowledge, as of this recording, I don't think they've released who they're playing yet. I know they play, as of this recording, they're playing tonight against the Blues. The St. Louis Blues, I believe, and they have not announced who they're playing for going into the playoffs. But I'm very excited to see who it's going to be because all of them are going to have to go through Dallas, and I'm very excited for the playoffs to begin. But enough NHL. I'm happy for my Stars. Let's go get this championship. Let's go get the Stanley Cup. NBA playoffs are in full swing as well, so it's going to be exciting to see who's going to win the NBA Finals championship. Now, to some order of business. NFL news. A lot of crazy stuff has been happening. A lot of things have been talked about. So let's hop straight into it. Topic number one for the day. We're going to be talking about, you guessed it, the biggest talk of the whole offseason this year. The Baltimore Ravens. They have, just this past week, signed Odell Beckham Jr. Now, on a fan's note, I'm very excited that Odell got signed. I'm a big fan of Odell. I liked him in Dallas, even though he was a big headache every time the Cowboys played against him. I never liked playing against him, but I liked seeing him play. I definitely enjoyed, kind of just the way he is, and definitely has a big social media following, big public figure. And now he just got signed after a year of not playing. He has been signed to the Baltimore Ravens on a 1-year, $15 million guaranteed contract with $18 million that can be earned in incentives. Now, what do I think? Like I said, as a fan of Odell Beckham, I'm happy he got signed. I thought, he was very good when he was in LA. I thought the Cleveland Browns thing just didn't work out. But when he went to LA, he kind of showed who he can be. And, as a fan, I'm happy. However, looking at this realistically, and I'm kind of looking at this not in a fan's perspective, I don't like it. Because there's still one issue that the Baltimore Ravens still haven't kind of solved this whole offseason. They don't have a quarterback. Lamar Jackson still hasn't signed anything. And I guess I understand what they're trying to do. They're trying to build help around Lamar Jackson. But Odell's been available for over a year. And, well, I say available, quote unquote, last year because apparently he still had issues with his knee. And he still was, and they weren't even sure if he was going to play. Because I remember talking about this when the podcast first began, and the Dallas Cowboys were looking into getting Odell Beckham Jr. But obviously, after he went through the tests and the, kind of the doctor's visits, and the Cowboys found out he might not even play this year, and he might play next year, and he wanted a long-term deal. And I was thinking, no, that's not how that works because you're not going to help us right now. So we signed T.Y. Hilton. History goes. So now that the Baltimore Ravens signed Odell, here's like my issues kind of with Odell, not excluding the fact that I'm a big fan of his. Let's look at this realistically. He hasn't played in a year. He's had 2 reconstructive surgeries on his ACL. He's just not a number 1 wide receiver anymore. Here's what I mean. When he was in New York, athletic, fast, great hands. We all saw the one-handed Odell that everyone now tries to do, and he was great. And then the injury bug came in. Then he was, he was out, and then he got traded to Cleveland. He was hurt most of the time in Cleveland, so it didn't really work out in Cleveland. Then he went to LA and kind of showed it wasn't him that was the problem. But here's the thing: what happened in LA and the success he had with the Los Angeles Rams. He wasn't a number 1, and I think that's kind of something we need to remember. He was not the number 1 target. Cooper Kupp was. He was the number 1. Because, as we saw after Odell got injured in the Super Bowl, Odell, he went down, he tore his ACL again in the middle of the game, which was very unfortunate because I thought he was on pace to have a really good game. Cooper Kupp came in and took over and won MVP. So, we have to keep that in mind. He was not a number 1. Now, he's coming into Baltimore, where on a technicality, I guess if you count tight ends as receivers, Mark Andrews is the number 1 wide receiver on that whole offense. Because when Sean Bateman got hurt, I forgot who the actual number 1 ended up being at the end of the season, after yards and stuff like that. I forgot who they were. I'm blanking on their name. But they mostly relied on Lamar Jackson's legs in the running game with J.K. Dobbins. And they relied on that and went about that route. So what I'm getting at here is that we need to keep that in mind with Odell. He's not a number 1, and he's possibly being asked to come back as a number 1 wide receiver. Because Bateman got hurt. Nelson Aguilar did get signed earlier in the offseason. But it's also great, because I know he kind of revamped his career in New England. I know New England fans were happy when he came in and, he went off. But still, I don't think he's going to be enough to be a number 1. I don't think Nelson Aguilar is going to be good enough to be a number 1 wide receiver for Baltimore. I don't know if Rashawn Bateman will because he keeps getting hurt, and we haven't gotten a big sample size. It's kind of like what's going on with Trey Lance. And now Odell's coming in, which we know in his past he can be the number 1 wide receiver. That's not what anybody's disputing, and that's not what I'm disputing either. I'm saying for the player he is right now, he's not a number 1. I think if he had a good, a little duo, or at least another number 1 wide receiver, or at least someone that's good enough to be a number 1 wide receiver, like Cooper Kupp was, then he'll be successful because he'll have a lot of one-on-one matchups. He won't ever have to worry about, being double covered or possibly getting more injured or something like that. And he would be a little bit more relaxed, and he can get open and do what Odell can do. And we've all seen what Odell Beckham Jr. can do. But now he's coming in as a number 1. With still the lingering problem of who's going to throw him the ball. If it's going to be Tyler Huntley, or is it going to be Lamar Jackson, or is it going to be Anthony Richardson if they somehow make a trade with somebody? Who knows who the quarterback is? And I think that's still the next problem that Baltimore still hasn't solved, is that Lamar Jackson's still not going to be on the field coming up this season. And I think that's the problem. And that's kind of where I was having the issue. Not really signing Odell Beckham. I can understand, okay, let's get some weapons. Congratulations, you're the front office, and you're revolving your offense to be good enough to keep up with Lamar and actually set him up to be a good quarterback. That's what you're supposed to do as people in the front office and ownership. That's what you do. Congratulations, you've done a job all 32 teams need to do. My problem is the contract. Because they just gave Odell at least a good chunk of money. I believe out of out of all the wide receivers that got signed this offseason, he's gotten the biggest contract with the possibility of getting $18 million in its incentives with $15 million guaranteed coming in. And to me, it's why did they do that? And why they still haven't paid Lamar Jackson if they just gave a wide receiver who had 2 reconstructive knee surgeries, hasn't played in a year. And I've seen the workout videos just as much as everybody. He looks good. He looks fresh off the injury. Problem is, he hasn't played in a year. That's kind of the realistic thing I'm looking at it here, is that he has not played in a year. He has not gotten tackled or any kind of contact from a DB, a linebacker, whoever plays on defense has not tackled him in a year. He has not played in a year, and he just came off a second reconstructive surgery. So that's kind of like my thing is that why did they give him so much money? Now, I can understand like obviously season tickets because that's kind of a big thing in an organization is that you got to bring in people, you got to sell season tickets. Who's excited, who's going to be excited to go see, Rashad Bateman, which is like still a toss up if he's going to be a good wide receiver. Who wants to go see Nelson Aguilar? But if you bring in Odell, that's definitely going to draw in some money, and definitely going to help them in probably season ticket sales, probably jersey sales. They're gonna make money. That front office is going to make a lot of money just off Odell's name alone. But they still don't have a quarterback, which is the one problem they still have not figured out or solved. And I believe Lamar Jackson, as of this recording, still hasn't signed the franchise tag. He's still, requested the trade. He still may not even come back. So we're not even sure if he's gonna play. So now you're gonna have to go into backup mode and go with Tyler Huntley. And we saw what the offense looked like without Lamar Jackson. They were not very good. Luckily they were ahead enough, and by the time the end of the season rolled around, when Lamar got hurt, to still make the playoffs. But we saw how that worked out. Now, I can't see, however, that if the organization is trying to show Lamar that, hey, if you want all this money, we can't bring in talent. See what happens when you kind of, give us a friendly deal. We can bring in more talent around you to help. Which, I guess, if that's going to be their case and that's going to be their fighting argument and drive for Lamar Jackson, then all to you. Then, obviously, you guys are working on a bigger brain than all of us. But Lamar Jackson still earned his money is more of my issue, is that he at least deserves some kind of payment. And especially if they want to make it team friendly and long term, I think they can make it work, because clearly they can, because they have money, because they just gave Odell Beckham almost $15 million in guaranteed money with a possibility of $3 million extra on incentives. Now, let's see what they can do and pony up and give Lamar Jackson at least something that'll help him out. Now, do I think that Odell coming in is going to possibly persuade him to come back to the organization? Maybe. I think maybe because it gives him at least a little bit of hope that now he has at least competent wide receivers. He's not working with third string wide receivers, injury prone young wide receiver, and a bunch of running backs, and that's all he's working with, and a really good tight end. Now, hopefully, with Odell coming in, and if, say for the sake of argument, Lamar Jackson does play and he comes back and signs the contract, then Mark Andrews is definitely going to have a lot of weight taken off his shoulders, since Odell's going to be able to come in, probably open up the field more, and definitely take off from there, at least offensively. But the problem still is that we are waiting to see what happens with Lamar Jackson. That's what I want to know, is what's going to happen with Lamar Jackson. Are they just going to end up trading him? Is someone going to offer him any money? I know that right now, as of this recording, no one's offered Lamar any kind of money, so now the Ravens are still kind of in power, like I said a few episodes ago, is that they're the ones in the driver's seat, and now that no one wants Lamar Jackson because no one wants to pay $230 million guarantee or $250, whatever he was asking, now, he's kind of stuck in whether he takes less money and goes somewhere else or, comes back to the Ravens, and we're going to have to see what happens. But at least they're going to help him out a little bit, even though Lamar hasn't signed the contract and he's kind of playing a little bit of hardball to see if he'll come back. But congratulations to Odell Beckham Jr. and, coming back, and hopefully he can stay healthy and help out the Baltimore Ravens. And if Lamar Jackson plays, it's going to be a great offense to see him, Rashad Bateman, Nelson Aguilar, Mark Andrews, Lamar Jackson if he comes back, and then great running backs. That's going to be a pretty scary offense, at least on paper. As long as Odell can stay healthy, they can make it work. All right, next topic. Hey everybody, I just want to take a real quick pause from the podcast to introduce our first sponsor, One Guy from Italy on University. One Guy from Italy on University is a local Lubbock restaurant located right next to Texas Tech University. They have some of the best food in town. I know personally, I go order the house calzone is my favorite, and also they have been voted to have the best calzones in Texas. So if you're ever in Lubbock, Texas, make sure you guys stop by One Guy from Italy on University, and thank you guys for being our first sponsor of the podcast. Now, let's get back to the episode. This is kind of more of an interesting thing that I kind of heard about and saw. We're talking about the man I guess he's losing his mind. I don't know what's going on with this man. Cam Newton, he has recently, I believe last week, he came out with a list of NFL quarterbacks he is willing to back up. So he's willing to back up Deshaun Watson, Lamar Jackson, Justin Fields, Tua Tagovailoa, Malik Willis, C.J. Stroud, Bryce Young, Anthony Richardson, Jalen Hurts, Aaron Rodgers and Josh Allen. Now, what do I think about all this? Cam Newton's delusional is what I think of what's going on here. Because the first thing that came to my mind, or at least when I first heard about this, is that those are the guys he's willing to back up, which means any other quarterback he has not mentioned means he can beat them for their starting job. And I don't agree, because he cannot beat Patrick Mahomes. Hands down, he can't beat him. Even 2015 Cam MVP could not even beat Patrick Mahomes on his worst day. By far. Just comparing those two alone. Patrick Mahomes, in the first 3 years he started, or 4, now going on 4, he's already gone to 2 Super Bowls, 2-time Super Bowl MVP, won 2 Super Bowls, and he won an NFL League MVP. Cam Newton only won 1 League MVP, and he only went to the Super Bowl once, where he got absolutely spanked by the Denver Broncos defense. Von Miller was just all over him. And that's what I'm thinking. This is where I'm at with this whole situation. This is why I think he's very delusional. Because he's not better than Patrick Mahomes. He probably will never be better than Patrick Mahomes. Even when he came back and tried to play in New England, he still was nowhere close to good as Patrick Mahomes. When he came back about two seasons ago, wasn't that good either. That's where I didn't understand where he thinks that he's better than Patrick Mahomes. Another name that came to mind was Dak Prescott. Now, this past season wasn't great for Dak. But would I take Dak or Cam Newton? I'm taking Dak Prescott. I'm sorry, but I like Dak way more than I like Cam Newton. I think Cam Newton, being 2015 Cam, he was great. He was phenomenal. I liked how he played his game. But now I'm still gonna stick with Dak. I'm sorry. I'd rather go with Dak. I think he's definitely a better passer right now than Cam Newton is, even though his weird pro day video thing that he tried doing at Auburn. I still would rather have Dak Prescott. Another name that wasn't on the list, Trevor Lawrence, who is a young quarterback with a lot of upside, and we saw it last season when the Jacksonville Jaguars actually put in a coach that was competent and was willing to work hard to make this team work in Doug Peterson. I still would take Trevor Lawrence over Cam Newton right now because he showed a lot of upside and a lot of growth this season, and I believe they won the division. And they won a playoff game after being down 27-0, came back and won the game against the Chargers. That's another quarterback, Justin Herbert. I know I have my little indifferences with Justin Herbert, but I would still probably take Justin Herbert over Cam Newton right now, just because he does have upside. He's young and he can get it done. I think that Cam Newton would not even come close to him either. Another name that wasn't mentioned, Joe Burrow, who went to the Super Bowl his second year with a bad offensive line and made it to the Super Bowl and almost won the Super Bowl. And now the Cincinnati Bengals are probably one of the AFC teams to beat probably going in the near future. I would not pick Cam Newton over Joe Burrow. I'm sorry. Joe Burrow is just way too good. Coming out of LSU, we all kind of expected this, and he took a team with a bad offensive line all the way to the Super Bowl. He owned Patrick Mahomes for at least the couple years he played him up until this year. You know, everyone was making the joke about Arrowhead being Burrowhead. Joe Burrow is just way better than Cam right now. And that's at least a couple of names that off the top of my head, I would still pick over Cam Newton. A couple of problems I have with the names that he listed. Malik Willis is not even a starting quarterback. Ryan Tannehill is going to come back to Tennessee and take over the starting job. So he wants to be the backup to the backup quarterback. He'd be third string. That's where I didn't understand where all that was coming from. Another one is Anthony Richardson. I'm personally not sold on Anthony Richardson. I don't know if he's going to be any good. From what I saw, at least in college, I did not think he should be a first round pick, but apparently he's going to be. So if he wants to try to back up and be a mentor to him or CJ or Bryce, okay, I can get behind that. Like, that's fine. Then if you want to be a mentor and all that. But to Deshaun Watson and Justin Fields, okay, sure. I don't really know what's up with that. Who knows if Lamar Jackson is going to come back to the Baltimore Ravens, so that's still up in the air behind Josh Allen as well, which I guess makes sense in him and Aaron Rodgers. But I still don't understand where all this came from and why he thinks he's still better than a lot of teams. Actually, one name I left out, Sam Howell from the Washington Commanders, was another person he said he would gladly be a backup for. And I didn't understand that either because he only played one game, and it was at the end of the season for the Commanders because they were all fresh out of quarterbacks. Carson Wentz, I don't know what happened to him. Taylor Heineke was injured. He was just there to be there. And they said, you know what, we need a quarterback. End of the season, go nuts. And he wants to back up him, and it's not even a guarantee he's going to be the starter. So he's just back in the Malik Willis situation. You can't, it just doesn't make sense to me, and I don't understand why he's being this delusional and why I don't know if he's just trying to be like that person, like that's trying to stir the pot or what's going to happen, or, you know, if he really believes in himself that much, which I'm all for confidence. Like if you're confident in yourself, great. But there's also, there's a time where you got to be realistic with yourself. And that's sadly what Cam Newton is not doing right now. And the funnier thing is that everyone was kind of trashing on other people that people were calling Cam Newton just a regular quarterback. And even though he said that he's better than 32 of the quarterbacks in the league right now, which doesn't make any sense either. And my next problem I had with this whole thing that he said was that Cam Newton doesn't have a job. He's not in the league. Even though if he somehow thinks he's better than Trevor Lawrence, Justin Herbert, Joe Burrow, Dak, Patrick Mahomes, whoever he thinks he's better than, and he thinks he can take their job, the newsflash is that he's not even in the league. He's not even a backup quarterback anywhere. As of from my research and kind of what's been going on, no one's called him. There's been no reports of anyone reaching out to him. I know he keeps going on podcasts or whatever saying, well, my phone's dry, no one's hitting me up. It's because you're not that good anymore. Like, I'm sorry. Even if it was 2015 Cam, you maybe try to get him, but it's not 2015 Cam Newton, and that's the problem. Because if it was 2015 Cam, I bet a lot of teams would be calling him right now. But it's not. Not even the desperate quarterback-needy teams like the Colts, the Texans, or the Panthers are even calling him back. Not even Ron Rivera, who is with the Commanders right now, who coached Sam Howell, didn't call Cam Newton either. Because he knew from now is that he's not that great and he's not that quarterback anymore. And now Cam Newton wants to be very picky on where he wants to go, which is what I'm not understanding. Is that, you don't have a job, you want to get back in the NFL, but you're kind of being picky. It's kind of like when you either got laid off or you quit a job or whatever, but you come around and say like, oh, I'm open for work, but I only work here. I'll only work a manager spot at a high corporation, or I'll only be a CEO, executive, whatever. Buddy, you don't have a job. I think if you really need a job that bad, you will take anything that comes to you, at least any kind of opportunity. Now, if he handled it well, hey, NFL GMs, I'm still here, I'm fresh, I'm healthy, let me throw for you guys, try out, see what you guys like, and I'll come in, I'll be a backup, I'll fight for the backup spot, I'll be third string, whatever, I'll be a mentor to the young guys. I think that would have been a whole different avenue that would have opened up for Cam Newton, and he probably would have at least snuck his way back in the league. But calling everyone that's a starting quarterback in the NFL a random, saying that I'll only back up a handful of quarterbacks when he doesn't even have a job, and kind of implying that he's better than Patrick Mahomes, Dak, Trevor, Justin, Joe. It's just delusional. And I think that his ego is at the point where it's so big that he doesn't realize that he's ruining any chances he has trying to come back into the league. Now, we'll have to wait and see if anyone even is interested. I don't think anyone will be, because if I was an NFL GM, I wouldn't be, because there's younger quarterbacks coming into the draft that you may want to bank on. There's people right now that if you want them, you can definitely go get him. Lamar Jackson, great example. He's still available technically. I would go that route over Cam Newton. And if you already have your franchise quarterback, or you're going to stick with the person long term, you don't need to go get Cam Newton. And we'll just have to see what happens. But this whole Cam Newton thing has been kind of a mess, and I think he kind of just sabotaged any hope he had trying to come back into the league, or even having a remote chance to even getting a simple tryout. Because he had his pro day thing at Auburn, but no one's been calling him. He's been saying that no one's hit up my line. Well, I'm sorry, Cam, but you're not as good as you were, or as great as you were. Rookie of the year, MVP, Super Bowl appearance. You're not that quarterback anymore, and I think he kind of just ruined any kind of chance that he had trying to get back in the league. Next topic for the day. The Philadelphia Eagles. We're trying to talk about the Eagles out in the NFC. So they apparently, it has been reported that they have an offer on the table for Jalen Hurts for a 7-year, $345 million contract. Now, do I like this deal? I do for Jalen Hurts because, I mean, I've liked Jalen Hurts whenever he was in college, when he was first at Alabama, then he went to Oklahoma, did really well. And I was pretty excited for the Eagles when they drafted him in the second round. And he kind of came in behind Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz gets benched for Jalen Hurts, and he takes over the offense. And just seeing what, at least how high his ceiling is last season, because he got to the Super Bowl. He was probably one at least good drive away, maybe a minute or two on the clock in the Super Bowl from possibly winning the Super Bowl. And he took that Kansas City Chiefs offense to the limit. Nick Sirianni definitely set him up to be great. He's developed, he's changed since when he first came in the league. Mentally as a leader, physically we've seen how buff he is, how stronger he got for this offense to work. Now, is it going to be worth 7 years and $345 million? I think so, if they're able to get this contract signed. Here's why. Because what we're seeing, and at least kind of in rotation here, and kind of what we've noticed a pattern, is that the NFL organizations that take a while to sign these long-term contracts, or at least get this negotiation thing going, or even just signing them, end up regretting it. A great example was the Dallas Cowboys. After they gave Dak the long-term deal and whatever, now they're realizing we should have just paid him earlier because we would have saved more money. The ceiling for quarterback pay was definitely a lot lower, and they probably would have got him at a cheaper price instead of holding out, and Dak betting on himself. And then obviously we saw what happened in 2020, broke his ankle, and then we were completely not great without Dak, and they had to give him the contract. And they paid Ezekiel Elliott before Dak, which was not a smart move. I think Amari Cooper, when he was still there, he got his contract before Dak, and the Cowboys admitted that, well, we probably should have gave Dak a contract before probably those two guys. And then now we're seeing it with the Baltimore Ravens. They offered a 3-year deal, which wasn't what Lamar wanted, and now we're seeing that what's going on in Baltimore is that Lamar Jackson wants a trade. He may not come back. And they're hoping, maybe they can fix it, or maybe with Odell coming in, he can sign the franchise tag, whatever. But we're seeing the pattern, is what I'm getting at, is that when organizations take too long to sign their franchise quarterback, that bill is only going to go higher and higher. The only team right now that I can think of that didn't do that was the Kansas City Chiefs, at least in recent history. Because the Kansas City Chiefs they gave Patrick Mahomes that 10-year deal early on to make sure they solidified a quarterback. And in the long run, it seems like a lot of money, but in the long run, it ends up being a really, really good family-friendly deal because they can still bring in people. They can still try to pay Travis Kelce, and any other players that are coming in. Apparently they draft really good running backs. So what I'm getting at is that they did it right. They solidified their starting quarterback, their franchise player, the face of the franchise, possibly the face of the NFL right now, and they signed him to a long-term deal. He's not going anywhere, at least for a long time. And that's how Kansas City did it, so that way they can avoid having to pay him outrageous money. Because imagine if Patrick Mahomes right now was waiting to get a contract like Lamar Jackson. He would be floored to find out that Deshaun Watson got $230 million guaranteed, and if he didn't get a good deal, I know he would come back and say, I want a Super Bowl, I got an MVP, I've gotten a lot better stats than Deshaun Watson, and I didn't get a check, I'm going to round up the bill. So the Kansas City Chiefs played it smart, and they played it right, because now these other organizations are seeing that maybe we should have just paid our starting quarterback earlier, so that way, whenever the ceiling did go up, they didn't have to worry about it anymore because they already paid their quarterbacks, and let's move on. So now it's the turn for the Philadelphia Eagles. So should they give him at least this long-term deal? It seems like it's family-friendly. I believe it's like $49 million a year. I think so, just because it's going to help, at least in the long run. And they can always restructure the contract within the next couple years or a little further down the line. They can always restructure Jalen Hurts' contract to at least, if they want to keep Devontae Smith, if they want to keep A.J. Brown or Darius Slay or anybody else they want to keep, they can go that route. But if they want to solidify Jalen Hurts and not tell him to bet on himself again, I would try to get him to sign this contract now, so that way they don't have any issues down the line. Because imagine the Philadelphia Eagles tell Jalen Hurts that, no, we want to give you another year and see what you can do, and he has another great season. Now the bill is just going to go up higher because Jalen Hurts might not be a nice guy and say, well, I'll wait and hold out, and, try to work with you. Because he may come back and say, hey, I got you the Super Bowl last season. We did really well this season with a little bit less players. And even the season before this one, before they went to the Super Bowl, when Nick Sirianni first came in, he had a way less talented Philadelphia Eagles team and got them to the wild card. They got their butts kicked by Tampa Bay, but they still made it to the playoffs with less. This season, they had a loaded roster, and Jalen Hurts was able to get them to the Super Bowl. And then we saw what happened whenever he was injured and Gardner Minshew was in. I mean, he had a great game against Dallas, fine, but then he blew it against the Saints. And they saw what they were without Jalen Hurts. Because that offense does revolve around Jalen Hurts, and especially his accuracy at throwing the ball. His legs are a big reason why they were so successful. And now it's probably time to at least kind of give him at least some kind of deal, or at least start talking about it. I know this is like one of the ones that was reported was a 7-year contract. And as long as they kind of get that figured out right now, then they won't have a problem later on because, like I said, they could always restructure. They could always figure something out. And especially if they want to keep their wide receivers and they want to keep their quarterback compared to maybe other teams who may have a bigger salary cap and can afford Jalen Hurts, I would get him right now. And it doesn't seem like Jalen Hurts wants to go anywhere. He loves it in Philly. He loves Nick Sirianni. He seems like he wants to stay and he wants to be the face of the franchise there in Philadelphia. So I would definitely try to get him right now before the market goes up any higher or before anyone wants him more. Next topic for the day. Hey everyone, I just want to take a quick break from the podcast to introduce our next sponsor, Goldmine Collectibles. Goldmine Collectibles is a local Lubbock store located right off of 50th Street and University. Goldmine Collectibles sells a variety of things such as Funko Pops, wrestling figures, Pokemon cards, comic books, and more. As an example that I bought from Goldmine Collectibles is this awesome Cody Rhodes Double or Nothing Championship figure that they had in the store. And if you guys see the Funko Pops that I have right behind me, some of them are actually from Goldmine Collectibles. If you're ever in the market for Funko Pops, comic books, Pokemon cards, wrestling figures, and more, make sure you guys head on over to Goldmine Collectibles. Thank you guys for sponsoring today's video. And now, back to the episode. Speaking of the NFC East, the New York Giants, today, it has been reported by Adam Schefter that Saquon Barkley is not going to sign the franchise tag. I'm a little shocked. I am and I'm not. Actually, let's go with that. Because on one side, I'm shocked that he hasn't signed it because, I would think he would. On the other, I'm not. Because we saw who just got paid in New York. Daniel Jones. And personally, I was on the fence of he shouldn't be getting that kind of money. He shouldn't get $40-45 million a year for 3 seasons because he was not the reason why they were so successful. Saquon Barkley was. He had 1,300 rushing yards. He had, I believe, over 13 touchdowns. He had a great season coming back off an injury. When Saquon Barkley is healthy, that offense is just absolutely unstoppable because he's a really good running back. He's great out of the backfield. He's a great receiving back. He helps Daniel Jones kind of get the weight off. So, and then earlier this offseason, Daniel Jones got his money after whatever the heck happened with the reports of him wanting a lot, and then he got the 3-year, $40 million, and I didn't think he deserved it. And now Saquon Barkley might not play. I believe it was reported that he will not be doing any kind of off-season activities with the organization until they can finish the negotiations. Now, do I think that he will sign the franchise tag? I think he will. I think he'll just sign it so then hopefully they can work something out next season if it takes too long, because I think that's the one thing you don't want to do, especially if you're a running back right now, is you definitely don't want to try to hold out. I know Zeke did it, and he came back after he got his money, but look how that worked out. And we've seen that pattern as well. We've seen running backs who hold out and try to get the giant bag, and then they weren't good. Ezekiel Elliott was a prime example. Alvin Kamara has not been that as much as productive as he used to be before he got the big contract. So now with Saquon Barkley up to bat on this paycheck thing, hopefully they can figure out at least some sort of deal. Because I personally would not want to lose Saquon Barkley because he does help that offense out so much. Especially since they didn't have any good wide receivers last season. Who was the workhorse of that offense? Saquon. And because he was the workhorse, it set up Daniel Jones to be super successful. I've talked about it in other episodes before that Saquon is the reason why Daniel Jones has been so successful. And now if he doesn't play or if whatever happens, they're gonna take a giant step back because Saquon is that one game changing factor. He's the one exciting player that the New York Giants are very happy to have, especially drafting him and kind of looking at his Penn State teammate Miles Sanders, who just went to Carolina. He knows he's better than him, but yet Miles Sanders got a contract. I believe Saquon Barkley didn't fumble the ball all season. Miles Sanders had a big fumbling problem with the Philadelphia Eagles. And that's what I'm getting at, is that I think he should have gotten at least paid first before Daniel Jones. If anyone deserved that kind of money, it was going to be Saquon Barkley. Now, if they're worried about the injury situation, because he needs to stay healthy, and he's a running back, he's going to get banged up a lot quicker than probably Daniel Jones will, then they have to figure out at least a deal, because he doesn't want to play under a franchise tag, because he doesn't, it's not good, it's not top paying money. I think he'd be like the 8th highest running back paid this season, and he knows he's worth more, because he knows that he was definitely the workhorse of that whole offense, because without him, that offense can't run, it's not going to run itself. And I don't believe they don't have a backup running back like the Kansas City Chiefs did with Pacheco to come in and replace him and help him out. Now, I am worried if he does hold out and he decides not to play, we're going to have a Le'Veon Bell situation. Because we all saw what happened with Le'Veon Bell with the Pittsburgh Steelers, is that, he held out to try to get a big contract and it didn't work. Then he went to the Jets and he fell off the face of the earth, at least in the NFL earth. No one's heard from him since. He was going all over the place. I believe he was with Kansas City for a little bit, but that didn't work. He wasn't the same dynamic running back as he was in Pittsburgh. But I think the difference in Pittsburgh was that they still had at least decent wide receivers. They still had Ben Roethlisberger on the roster. He didn't retire yet, so they still had at least some sort of like players that can help out. In New York, it's really just Saquon or bust, and that, in my opinion. Now that they have Darren Waller, it may help a little bit, but still, Saquon Barkley just takes over that offense. He takes over the running game, and when he is healthy and he goes, he's unstoppable. Even as a Dallas Cowboys fan, that's always my biggest concern, is that if we can't stop Saquon Barkley, it's going to be a long game. If we stop Saquon, then they're out, because they can't compete if Saquon's not doing well. And I think that's going to be the biggest thing going into this upcoming season, is making sure Saquon stays. Because if he doesn't, we're going to have a problem. At least they're going to have the issue of what are they going to do. Because I don't think they have another good running back. I don't know what pick they have in the first round. But I don't think that, if they want to get Bijan Robinson to possibly come in and back him up, or in case Saquon doesn't come back, they would have him to come in. But that would have to be a necessity thing, and that would have to probably be if Saquon is really dead set on not coming back, which I don't advise. I don't advise him not coming back, because you don't want the same thing what happened with Le'Veon Bell to happen to you. So I do think he will come back. I think that it's not going to be one of those I'm going to hold out situations. I think he will return to play. If it goes all the way into June and it's time to sign the franchise tag, he's going to say, all right, I'm going to sign the franchise tag, but if I come back and, just own it again, get 1,300 plus yards, have a lot of big games, help us get to the playoffs, that bill is going to be even bigger. And it's kind of like what I've been saying, this pattern. If you wait to pay these players that are really, really helpful, that bill is only going to go up higher and higher, and that's exactly what you don't want as an organization. But in my opinion, I think the Giants paid the wrong person. I think this is a situation of they should have known who they should have been paying first. I understand Daniel Jones is the quarterback, but I wasn't a big fan of Daniel Jones when he even got drafted in the first place. And I'm still not sold on Daniel Jones either way. He had one great season, don't get me wrong. He had a great season, but with Saquon Barkley back there helping him out, Saquon should have gotten that money. So I'm going to end on that note, just because it just kind of frustrated me a little bit that Saquon didn't get paid, and now he's going to kind of play the villain a little bit, but as he should, because he was the reason why that team was so successful. All right, final topic for today's episode. We're talking about the Arizona Cardinals. Man, what a mess are they? What a mess that they're under. But this past week it has been reported that 6 teams are interested in trading for the number 3 pick in the draft. I was a little shocked whenever I first heard about this, just because I didn't know that many teams were interested in getting number 3. Now, why do I think that maybe some teams might try to go get number 3? Because there's a lot of QB needy teams that need number 3. Because Carolina's not giving it up. They gave up way too much to even try to give up the number 1 spot. Houston's definitely not going to go anywhere, and who knows what they're going to do, because they may get a quarterback, they may not. I think they're stupid if they don't, but that was last episode. And then you're sitting Arizona's at 3. Here are the 6 teams. I don't. From what I tried to research, I couldn't see who tried to get the number 3 pick. But here are my 6 teams that I think possibly reached out to them. Number 1, Indianapolis. They are right behind Arizona, and I think that they want to trade up to at least get the quarterback that they want, whether it be Will Levis or Anthony Richardson. I think they're probably leaning more towards Will Levis. So I guess in case anything happens, they want to try to get Will. I believe they're 4 or 5. They're one of the two, but they have a high pick. They have a top 5 pick. But if they want to secure that quarterback that they want, then they're probably going to try to at least move up to try to get him, because they definitely are a team that needs it. Because Sam Ehlinger wasn't the answer, Matt Ryan was definitely not the answer, and Nick Foles wasn't the answer. So they definitely need help at quarterback, and they're going to try to get one as fast as they can, or at least try to get one of these top quarterbacks that are in the draft this year. So I think Indianapolis was one of the teams that went to try to go talk to them, at least try to see what they want. The next team, Atlanta. The reason why I say Atlanta is because they might need a quarterback too, because I don't know if they're completely sold on Desmond Ridder. I know they said that he's going to be the starter, but I mean, they kind of shipped out Marcus Mariota already, and it kind of seems like they're on the fence a little bit, unless they want to go get a defensive player, unless they want to go get Will Anderson or Jalen Carter or Tyree Wilson. Unless they want to go get one of those and try to move up to solidify that they're going to get them, that's really the only reason I could see them trying to get number 3, because I believe they're a top 10, if I remember correctly, or they're a little bit, or they're past 10. I'm blanking on the numbers, but I know that they're probably going to need another quarterback in case Desmond Ridder doesn't work out. They do have another one, or they're going to try to go get a top defensive player in the draft. Next up, Seattle. I heard a lot of rumors about Seattle possibly trying to get Anthony Richardson to sit behind Geno Smith. And the reason why is because they signed Geno Smith to a 3-year extension earlier this offseason. But who knows what might happen to him, and they might want to at least get their quarterback for the future. Give him a couple years to learn behind Geno Smith. Now, personally, I wouldn't want to learn behind Geno Smith because he has not been successful since last season. Or last season was probably one of his most successful years in his whole NFL career, and he was a backup for a very long time. So I don't know if that's kind of the way to do it, but having Pete Carroll there, he'll definitely help out Anthony Richardson, because I believe they were really interested in him. I know there was pictures on Seattle's Instagram and all that they were talking to Bryce Young. I believe they talked to CJ. They talked to Anthony Richardson, so it seems like they're very interested in Anthony Richardson. So, just to be the quarterback for the future, and then they have Geno Smith, at least to mentor him, kind of show him what's going to happen, and go that route. I am shocked because I know they were projected to get Tyree Wilson. I believe they have the number 8 or number 9 pick because they got one earlier. They got it in a trade. So I know that they're kind of projected to at least get a good player, and I thought they were just going to land with Tyree Wilson and take him and go. But they may want the number 3 pick. So that's another team I had possibly trying to get him. The 4th team I have is the Las Vegas Raiders. Here's why. Jimmy Garoppolo, he's a game manager, but he can win. He's a winner. I'll give him that. The problem is that he's injury prone. He's been injury prone his whole career. In New England, he was injury prone. With the 49ers, just last season, he got benched because he hurt his foot. I believe he hurt his foot or his hand. No, it was his hand. So he hurt his hand, and Brock Purdy took over and basically kicked him out. And I know he already had a shaky relationship with Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers front office. Now he's in Las Vegas to at least kind of help out, since Derek Carr left the Saints earlier this offseason. So I think the Raiders would try to go up to number 3 because they can go get their quarterback for the future, or get the backup, because that just in case Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't work out or he possibly gets injured. Because I think that's the biggest scare, in my opinion, about Jimmy Garoppolo, is that if he's gonna survive this season. So the Raiders would definitely be another team to look at in case they want to get another quarterback to at least back up Jimmy Garoppolo. I think they were a little bit more sold on Will Levis than Anthony Richardson. So they may try to go get him and move up to solidify their quarterback and go about it that route. Next team, number 5, the Tennessee Titans. Here's why. I think the Tennessee Titans are in a rebuild mode at this point because they traded away A.J. Brown and they got Trey Burks, who was not great. They're looking to trade Derrick Henry. They've already announced, I believe, when the combine was going on, that they were looking to trade Derrick Henry out. And Malik Willis wasn't great. He just wasn't. He got benched for Dobbs, who was the third string quarterback. Ryan Tannehill's not getting any younger. Last season kind of showed it after he got injured. So they may want to go get a quarterback too. They may want to try to go get Will Levis or Anthony Richardson, because they're definitely going to need at least another quarterback for the future in case Ryan gets hurt again and they don't believe in Malik Willis. I kind of said this at the end of the Tennessee Titans season, is that I think that, how Malik Willis played and kind of just how everything worked, and Ryan Tannehill not helping him out, it just doesn't look like he's going to be at least a starting NFL quarterback. In my eyes, from what I saw, at least a few games he played, I wasn't sold on him. He was barely able to throw the ball. Derrick Henry was the one who he rushed most of the time, which is, in theory, it should be great for Malik Willis because he would have a great running back to open up the passing game, but he also didn't have good wide receivers. Robert Woods wasn't great. Burks wasn't great either. So I think just that Tennessee Titans offense did not set him up to be successful. But I also just don't think he looked that great. It was times where he rolled out too much. He got great arm strength, don't get me wrong, but there were times where I was just, no, I'm sorry, I just wasn't sold on Willis. And then Dobbs had to come in. I think Dobbs kind of gave him a chance to try to get in the playoffs, if I remember correctly. And, they didn't end up making it because the Jaguars did. I believe it was them and the Jaguars are trying to win the division. So Dobbs did better than Malik Willis did. And Dobbs was the third string quarterback. So I don't think that the Titans are sold on Willis, anymore. So it's going to be probably between him and Ryan Tannehill, but I think they're going to try to go get another quarterback just because I think they're in that rebuild mode. I don't know how much longer Ryan Tannehill can go at this point just because, he got injured. He hasn't been looking as great, this past couple seasons. So they may want to possibly look into moving on from him and get another quarterback to see if they can at least fix the damage and start rebuilding. Last team I think that contacted the Arizona Cardinals, the Washington Commanders, because they desperately need a quarterback. They only have Jacoby Brissett and Sam Howell. Both of those guys were backups. Jacoby Brissett, I know he had his whole thing in Cleveland when Deshaun Watson was gone, and it kind of worked out, and he's kind of been a journeyman ever since like the New England days and all that. He was in Indianapolis, all that. And I'm not completely sold on Jacoby Brissett at least helping the Commanders right now. I think that maybe if they try to go get a quarterback, I don't think Sam Howell's going to be that great either. I think he had a little potential, but it was also the end of the season and he was playing a Cowboys team that was not on their A game. So I don't think those two quarterbacks are going to be the right answer for the Commanders, especially if Ron Rivera is going to be on the hot seat coming up this offseason, because I know there's been like rumors and speculations that he might get fired, because he hasn't done that well since coming to the Commanders. So how you fix that? Possibly going to get another quarterback, because they have a great team. Don't get me wrong. They have great wide receivers in Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel. They have great running backs they can use. They have a dominant front seven that is just that's just unstoppable. They have a little bit of a setup team. Maybe a little bit more help on defense, maybe linebackers or secondary, but other than that, they have a decent team. It's just that they're probably going to play in one of the hardest divisions coming up this season, because obviously the Cowboys aren't going anywhere, especially if Dak changes it, this kind of flips it around this upcoming season and does great. They're going to have to deal with the Cowboys. They're going to have to deal with Jalen Hurts and the defending NFC champions. The Giants got Darren Waller, so that's probably not going to get any easier. So the Washington Commanders are going to need a quarterback that can at least keep up with these teams. So I think that they're going to try to get number 3 as well. It may be on draft night, it may not be, but I do think the Commanders are probably going to be trying to get the number 3 pick, so that way they can at least either have either Will Levis or Anthony Richardson, or they can at least have a competent quarterback that can help, or if they want to build anywhere else. I don't really see why they would want to build anywhere else. But I believe they're in the late teens for the NFL draft, so they're not going to get a quarterback unless they go with someone that's probably going to be more in the second round. But as of right now, those are the teams that I believe that reached out to Arizona for the number 3 pick. Will Arizona trade is probably up in the air. The only realistic one I can see is maybe if Tennessee wants to if they want to try to get also DeAndre Hopkins, because I know Arizona's looking to ship him out. So definitely shipping out DeAndre Hopkins will get him out the door, and then then that'll be Tennessee's thing, and then they get extra draft picks, and then they get the third pick, and they go all about it that way. That's really the only team I can really see that can give up at least enough to kind of get the trade going, because I really don't see Seattle giving up DK or Tyler Lockett or Kenneth. Definitely no one on defense, because they're not going anywhere. Indianapolis, if they want to possibly trade one of their offensive players, but I highly doubt it. That's the whole reason why they're trying to get a quarterback. So I really don't see them trying to give up like Michael Pittman Jr. or anyone like that. Washington, if they were comfortable trying to give up Curtis Samuel or Terry McLaurin or maybe one of the defensive seven, but I really don't think that Arizona would want that. They may just want to go with Will Anderson or Jalen Carter and just save money that way. So Tennessee is really the only team that I can see realistically at least kind of having a good foot in the door for the draft, because they can always try to get DeAndre Hopkins and then give him a couple picks and give him probably the first round pick and maybe a couple handful of others, and at least get an actual number one wide receiver, because I know that's the one thing that they're lacking right now is a true number one since AJ Brown has left. And then, kind of figuring out what they're going to do from there, and if they want to, get another wide receiver in the draft and try to, undo what they did with Burks or build their defense. However Tennessee wants to go about it. But I think that they're going to be probably the best team, in my opinion, that are going to has the best shot at getting number 3. Will Arizona take it, though? It's going to probably be up to them and, whatever these teams can offer. But alrighty, everybody, that's going to wrap things up on this episode of the CAV Sports Podcast. Make sure you guys follow me on all my social medias, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and this video will be up on YouTube. It'll also be up on Spotify and Amazon Music. The NFL Draft is only 2 weeks away, everybody, so that's going to be very exciting. Probably in the next episode or the week of the NFL Draft, I will be doing kind of my mock draft. Who do I think is going to get drafted? Who do I think is going to go to what team? Maybe a trade. Who knows? But I'm very excited, and I'll catch you guys in the next episode.